Nick McHenry, welcome to the show.
How's it going? I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you, buddy. Listen, let's kick things off with something really spicy. What is your spicy take on building a SaaS business?
By the way, I like how you just dive right in and start with the spicy takes. Most podcasts you have to work up and ramp. You just go right, the sizzle right off the get go. Let's just kick it right off. No small talk. Let's get into it. Yeah. So I think it's helpful when I answer this to give a little bit of a backstory of just the company, not like the company itself, but like my experience. So we started off as a bootstrap company. We raised VC $1.2 million on somewhere between year 1 and 2, which took us a long time to raise the money. So sometime in that period. And since then, we basically kind of gone back into sort of a bootstrapping mode because we used that money, and now we're sort of like back into funding the business off of profits. That money is now gone. We're back into kind of like quote unquote bootstrapping. So we've kind of gone through the cycles of it. So I am biased here. I'm biased I'm going off of my experience, what I've seen. But I would say my general spicy take is that people should be more realistic going into like, where does their company sit on the VC scale? And then, what I mean by that is basically, realistically speaking, if you look at the numbers of VC, and I did not do this when I first started, it's like VC is very literally for like the 1% of the 1%. It's not a mass thing, which means that doesn't mean you can't go get VC money, by the way. Those are two separate things. But it means it's like being realistic of like what you're actually doing. And I think that helps change the way you structure your company and what you're doing. Is like, I think everyone, like the media will tell you, like, especially in like tech, Twitter and LinkedIn, like, you should just go raise VC. And then you have the other camp that's like, oh, you should bootstrap. Like, now you have this new emerging bootstrapping company, but they don't talk about like the why. They don't talk about like, actually, it's not even your decision. Like, I think they talk more about like, you should decide whether you want to be a VC company or bootstrap company, when in reality, that decision's probably made for you, just based on the business you chose. Like there's like the reality of getting to, $1 billion in revenue in this amount of time is, most companies don't do that, or it's very, very hard to do that in that amount of time frame. So just being realistic of that, and then once you figure that out, even if you decide to go the VC path, I find that this kind of secondary spicy take, I guess, that like the VC rules, if you will, of like, here are the things you don't do, like, focus on like a niche, do things that don't scale, like all of those like VC mantras, I would say are absolutely not rules. Like I would argue that, I don't want to say that they don't work, because they do work, but it's highly likely they don't work for you. So I took those as rules, like, oh, these are the way you build a VC company. And I would say most likely you're not a VC company, step 1. Step 2 is, even if you are, the rules of like, here's how you do VC, growth. I would say there's a high likelihood that of those things we've kind of like learned over the years, a lot of those are just not true.
I think a lot of people, certainly I was guilty of this. When you start your first business, you're like, I'm an entrepreneur now, and you read about stuff in TechCrunch, and you think this is the normal way to build a company, and it's really not. Like you said, it's VCs. I think it's like 1 in 1,000 companies gets investment from a VC. 1 in 1,000.
Yep.
So the other 999 businesses, are they bad businesses? Are they not? Of course not. You can build a really successful business without taking VC.
And of those one of those 1 in 1,000, if you take the 1,000 of those 1 in 1,000, 990 of those die in the following 2 years. Yeah. Like, so, or whatever the numbers are. I don't know the exact numbers, but.
Well, when they talk about failing fast too, it's like that's the thing. You sort of take one giant swing, and unless everything lines up properly.
Listen, and I haven't raised VC in a while, Ryan. So it's been a minute. So and I raised at like peak bubble, so the narrative's completely changed. I haven't gone out and tried to raise money in this new sort of like more conservative environment from when their valuations were insane. But my opinion, and this is the advice I would have given to myself, is I think it should be a requirement that you can't raise VC unless it's your second company. Like, I think that should be like not a requirement. Obviously, you'd miss Facebook, you'd miss like a bunch of different things. But to me, it's like, you go out there and prove that you've built a company, and even if it's failed, it doesn't matter. Like, I was a first-time entrepreneur, first time building a company, and then we raised VC. The amount that you learned just in the first time of building a company, VC or not VC started, even if it fails, I just feel like if I was to start all over again, I have so many tools and skills that I did not have before. I just know that like my second company, there's just no way in hell it's not bigger than my first company, because you just like learn those skills. So I just think it's like one of those things where like you should have to go prove that you did something first, and then you can go raise VC.
So if you flip that around, if you put yourself in the investor's shoes, one of the things that you would look for personally is, has this founder had a business before?
I think if I had a fund, I would just put a rule like we're only going to invest in second time founders. Yes, I'm going to miss a lot of amazing first time founders, but I would just be like, yep, that's just going to be the rule. And then like we'll maybe break that rule occasionally. There's probably exceptions like, oh, you're the first engineer at Apple, or like you're senior up at you're on the OpenAI team and you built the original algorithm. You're starting your own OpenAI offshoot. Like there are obviously like very very like distinct exceptions to the rule, but I think my rule would be no first time founders.
I love that. Why don't we take a step back a bit and talk about your business specifically? So,
Yeah.
what is OneShop and who is it for?
Yeah, so OneShop is an all-in-one loyalty and marketing platform specifically built for independent brick and mortar retail stores. And so we basically manage the entire customer-facing stack for mainly independent and franchise brick and mortar retail stores. That's expanding a little bit into brick and mortar businesses. So we're starting to work with restaurants and quick serve restaurant and stuff like that. But we handle like the core loyalty program, so what they earn, how they get rewarded, and the bonuses and promotions off of that. All of the marketing and text message automations, CRM and one-to-one communication, everything that touches the customer sort of goes through our platform, built on top of their point of sale and e-commerce platforms if they have them.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And how did you get your first few customers? Like, how do you get that off the ground?
We got our first few customers knocking on doors, literally just like physically knocking on doors, like cold calling in person, just going in. I mean, we knew we were working with physical businesses. Fun fact, we launched our product. We actually got our first customer ahead of launching our first product, but we got our that we just had like one or two customers this time, but we launched the product when it was ready, February 20th of 2020. So the world shut down in the US, I think like March 15th. So it was basically like we were in market for like 15 days. And we're in New York. So, I mean, New York is hardcore. Everything shut down. So the way that we got, and so basically like we had a business and then we didn't have a business 2 weeks later. And the way that we got the business is we were like, well, we're not going to change our market. We're still going to focus on brick and mortar retailers, but they're closed. Where were they open? Texas and Florida. So I was flying to Texas and Florida like every other week. And I was just knocking on doors, and they were so happy to have someone come in store because nobody was going out and about, basically. So they had tons of time on their hands. So we got it just like literally finding, well, A, an avenue because no one was going out in the world at that point that people just were not doing, and B, like literally just knocking on doors, going in and meeting these people.
And did you focus on, so is it Mark Schuster had a blog post really famous years ago where he talked about whether you want to hunt rabbits or deer or elephants or whales, I suppose. And he kind of makes the argument that if you go hunting rabbits, they're easy to catch, but you eat one, there's not a lot of meat on them. That just gives you enough energy to get the next one, and you never really get ahead. If you try hunting elephants or whales straight away, there's a lot of meat on them, but they're dangerous, they're big, they're hard to take down. It's going to take you a while. So he makes the argument that you should go after kind of mid-sized companies as a starting point. Did you guys start with mid-sized companies or big companies or small companies? Like, who did you specifically target in the early days?
That's a great question. I mean, in the early days, we targeted specifically small customers. I would say we were definitely targeting the rabbits, mainly because we just didn't know better. We had no idea. I mean, like we tried to go after big companies for a second, and we were like, it was just too hard to get a meeting, to get in. Even when we got the meeting, it didn't go very well because we just had no product to really like give them. So our ready buyers were the smaller companies. I mean, I would say we were going after like fat rabbits, if you will. So they weren't like, there was definitely smaller rabbits out in the world. Like our average business size when we first started was somewhere between $1 and $3 million a year.
Okay.
So it wasn't like really, really tiny businesses, but it definitely wasn't the mid-sized businesses. I would say, I mean, I don't know if you're going to take it this direction, but just to add on to something, just add on to this point, I guess, is we were really unlucky, I think, in that we got do you call it elephant, whales, whatever the analogy was. We were really unlucky in that we started with rabbits. Okay. We sort of skipped or didn't know where to find the middle, whatever the deer is. And we ended up getting a couple of like whales, like in year 2 of the business, I would say. And it wasn't actually the difficult part was not actually like, just to go on the analogy, like the actual like hunting and killing of it. It was once we closed the deal, now what do we do? So like it was we just killed a whale, but how do we cook this thing? Like how do we cut it and eat it? Like now what do we do? Like the deal was not the hard part. Like we actually got the sale relatively easily. And I can go on about how hard that was in the future, but it like kind of derailed. I mean, as an early product business, our product was super not robust. It didn't have like a bunch of features and functionality. The business that we did were literally 1,000 times bigger than our current customers. So like you have database problems with having to make sure like you can handle the database size and all that stuff. It probably took us, honestly, after we closed those deals, we probably spent the next year and a half just like backpedaling our product to try to backfill what they needed just for it to like work. And like, we had 2 customers that were now like 60% of our business, and we couldn't afford to lose them. So we spent like all of our time just trying to facilitate them, and then we couldn't get more whales on top of that to make it work.
So you almost like you were too early to take on that customer. You just weren't ready. Yeah. Okay.
We were so excited, and if I could go back in time, I probably would have told myself, don't do it. Like don't take it, or approach it differently, I guess. But
what would you have done differently in that scenario?
I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say right now. I mean, I guess it's easy to say now that I know, like with the force of 2020, to not take it. But I actually do believe we'd be better off not taking it, if I'm being honest, because we would have focused on the product, and we would have like not had to just force these features in just for these 2 customer use cases, because we had to support these whales in our business. I would have probably like backlogged them and been like, all right, let's actually see if we can get more distribution in this channel. Like, okay, we got 2 whales. Let's go prove we can actually get 5 more. And if we can get 5 more, then we'll say yes to these 2 deals. Because now we know, okay, we actually can build a business on top of this, versus what we did was like, oh my God, we did it. Yeah. Amazing. We're going to get all this money. We're going to triple the revenue. And we couldn't get more. So then it was like, well, we did all this work for a year. We've got these customers, but if they literally churn, we can't replace these. So now it just puts us in a weird spot, I would say. So I would have first proved out we can actually get the distribution and going forward with the whales, and then sort of done the work to actually execute it if we could prove that was true.
You were saying earlier that you pivoted your business in a pretty significant way. Can you kind of talk me through that? Hey, it's Ryan here. I'm glad you're enjoying the video. Listen, if you want to meet me or some of the people that I interview, you should really join the StartupSauce SaaS founder community. It's a private Slack group for SaaS founders based outside of Silicon Valley who are past the idea stage and want to focus on growth. About 30% of our members are doing over $1 million a year in revenue, so it's a pretty high caliber group. You'll get access to regular mastermind calls and workshops, and every week we share exclusive marketing tactics and resources that you can use to grow your business faster. So, if you want to give yourself an unfair advantage and learn from other SaaS founders who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, head over to startupsauce.com and sign up. I think there's a link in the description down below as well. Anyway, I'll see you in there. So,
I would say pivot is probably not the right word.
Okay.
We actually suck at pivoting, I would say. And I'm not saying this is not my recommendation, by the way. Like, I'm not saying other people should follow our foot tracks here. So we have never, as a company, pivoted in the sense of, oh, we realize something else is working way better. Let's kill this product and we're going to go into a new product. Instead, what we found is we started as a clienteling product for luxury retail stores, where it was basically like Salesforce for small luxury retail stores. We learned over time that was a very difficult product to get adoption from, and a very difficult product. It wasn't actually a huge market, so it wasn't like, oh, we were like, getting sales left and right and sideways. As we went more vertical with more horizontal with our product, so widened the applicability of it and actually added like general like marketing automation, things that could be done by more types of retailers, and then added loyalty. Really, what we learned is we should have gone in reverse order. We should have started with loyalty, been a loyalty company, then added marketing on top of that, and then maybe decide if we wanted to at that time to go into CRM at the last step. So I don't think we pivoted, but what we've changed dramatically is how we've approached the market. So we thought we were going to be this like basically, CRM high touch platform. And now we're more like an automation platform specifically for smaller retailers in basically any vertical. So it's less specific to the luxury industry. And so I would say pivot's probably not the right word. I would say instead we've completely changed. If you look at our website 3 years ago to today, totally different. It looks like we're a brand new company, but all the things that were there 3 years ago are still under the hood. It's just a brand new like face or paint job on the company in terms of how we position ourselves, the company we're going after, and then the whole suite we're kind of selling you.
And is that just because you've had more conversations with customers, you've learned more about what people want, what the problem that people think they have right now versus the deeper problems that people actually have later on?
I would argue that we thought the problem we were solving was, oh, you have like disjointed data. You need software to help you engage those customers more personally. Okay. What we've learned actually is our core value is I don't want to log into 4 different softwares. I just want one software to do all of this for me. That's it. So our value is actually like the all-in-one nature of the platform is actually the value, not the outcome. It's like we thought it would be like, oh, it'd be nice if, okay, we're going to have value in each of our products. And then those are all going to be by themselves the main value. And it's going to be nice that you can have all these products in one suite. When in reality, I would say our number one value is it's all in one. And then what's underneath that all-in-one is sort of like the byproduct of, oh, it's so great that you just have one all-in-one place for me to do this in.
Fantastic. I think you said you just hit about 60,000 in MRR. So fist bump to you, sir. Well done.
Wish it was higher.
Wish it was higher, but but the journey to get there is the interesting part. And what is your secret sauce?
Yeah. So I think our unique insight to the market is twofold. One is that part of it is, I think, our background. And because over the last 5 years of doing this business, I've taken a distinctly different approach to everybody else I've ever met in tech, in the sense of I spend an inordinate amount of time in physical retail stores, in our customers, like literally in person, doing it with them. Like we've really never had a motion where people like go to the website, they sign up, they create their account, they pay us, and then that's it. Like traditional software, SaaS, if you will. That insight has driven basically this positioning, which is, I think sounds like, to me, it sounds painfully obvious, but it's really not that obvious. It's just by focusing on brick and mortar specifically is really our secret sauce. Like almost always, just like we built this for you, having 4 walls. You might have a little bit of e-commerce, but that doesn't matter to us. If you have none, don't worry. Our platform will work specifically. And so many people have gone after e-commerce. Our playbook is literally just do the e-commerce playbook for stores, and that adapts the products. You can't just take the exact same software and be like, great, you're in a physical space, because people are in a 4-walled space. But by adapting that, I would say that's our biggest key insight specifically to that. And then our superpower on top of that is treating it differently and treating the business not like a traditional software business. So we're not trying to be a traditional SaaS company. Like our number one channel that we're growing in right now is resellers of point of sale systems. So, and I actually didn't know this at the beginning of the business. Like even traditional point of sale systems, like if you go buy Square, most people are not just going to the website and ordering a Square platform and doing it. They're buying it from someone that knocked on the door and said, hey, I can sell you a Square point of sale. I'll install it for you. I'll set it up. So like on-prem sales and distribution is really kind of like becoming our secret sauce, I would say, on top of the other insight.
So this whole world is based very much on people knocking on doors, saying hello, introducing themselves. It's still a face-to-face, person-to-person kind of business, as opposed to email, social media, all the online stuff. That's the thing that's worked for you?
Yeah, I mean that's 100% what's worked for us, and I would say that we are continuing to double down on that, from like email, from cold outbound, email, social, all those things. I would say that only will widen your top of funnel, but somewhere in that funnel will still be some on-prem offering. It would just be like, oh, great. Like I think our playbook is we'll do email and all that stuff. And when you're interested, we'll ideally connect you with one of our on-prem team, and they can come and install it, get you set up. And then we'll have some of it be not on-prem, but
I remember this might have been going back a couple of years now. We were both on a mastermind call and in the StartupSauce community, and you said, "Hey guys, I'm not gonna be able to make the next few calls. I'm gonna get in my car and drive across the country and go and see all my customers face to face." Everyone else on the mastermind call was like, "What? You're gonna leave your house and go and see people face to face? Are you crazy?" That's not, because everyone else was so focused on, I sit behind my laptop all day long and I build things and I do SEO and everything's online. But you weren't afraid to get out of the building and go and talk to customers. It's awesome that that's turned into a real superpower for you.
But I would say, so one thing on that though is that for years, literally years, I saw it, and this has slowed the business down. I wish I'd realized this 2 years ago. Is I thought it wasn't a superpower. I thought it was a weakness to our business. I was like, oh my god, like this business, there's no way that we're doing this wrong. There's no way this business is going to scale through going to physically in store one at a time, selling the owner in person, doing it that way, and about the amount of time I was spending doing it. So I was constantly looking for new distribution channels that were, I thought, quote unquote, easier, like cold email, social, running ads, partnerships, webinars. I thought that would be like, I was looking for a new channel, versus what I should have done is, this channel is working. How can we just 10x this channel or 100x this channel? And what do we need to do to 100x this channel? So I was like, even though we had found a channel that would work, I ignored it because it was like, I don't like this channel. When in reality, I would argue that oftentimes the channel chooses you. You don't choose the channel.
Let's do a bit of a deeper dive into some of the marketing tactics that you're using right now. So you mentioned resellers as a channel that's really important to you. Like, how else do you get customers right now?
One thing I want to caveat this answer, because there are a couple other ways we get customers. We are trying to literally drop other distribution channels right now. So like you're asking like, what are other channels you do things through? I would say it's working so well. We're just trying to triple down on resellers right now. Like our whole playbook is like we've been too dispersed over the years of like chasing new distribution channels. When in reality, if we can 5x the business in one channel, why not just put all of our eggs into that basket and quadruple down on that channel? So I would say that's where we're at today. Is we're actually trying to lose other channels. That being said, from a top of funnel perspective, our other our reseller channels in two ways is resellers and affiliates. So if you want to call that one channel or two channels, I'm not sure. Resellers, as we define them, are like you're actually selling and implementing it for you, and we don't even touch the product. Like literally, you're paying the reseller, and then affiliates are just bringing people into our top of funnel for our inside team to then close and then push off to like get onboarded. So we kind of look at that as like channel A, channel B of one channel specifically. So that's our most effective channel, if you will. And then our second most effective channel is events, in-person events. So we do a lot of trade shows and a lot of like service-based trade shows, like so almost like education mastermind events specifically. I was at one yesterday, and literally just me speaking at those is our second. It's our number one top of funnel channel is me public speaking at in-person events, and then our channel beneath that is the reseller affiliate channel.
Fantastic. And for anyone who's thinking about either doing more in-person speaking events or more resellers, can you kind of dive a little bit deeper? Like, how do you recruit those resellers or affiliates? What do you say to them? What does that process look like for you? Do you have a special process for finding and recruiting and training them or anything like that? Or
okay, so I think there's two different answers. I'll cover the in-person events answer first. I think this just goes to choosing a channel that's aligned with your strengths. One of my strengths is public speaking. In this way, educational based public speaking is one of the things I just happen to be quite good at, and people seem to resonate with, and it drives a lot of interest in our business. So I don't think that everybody can just be like, "Oh, this works," regardless of my personal skill set and how I approach things. I can just go public speak at events. I would say the reason it works is because I'll public speak in a grouping of maybe 10 other public speakers. And my approach to them is I'm going to be the number one of those 10. Like if you see 10 back to back, I'm going to bring the fire that the other 9 you immediately forget about the minute I start talking. So I think you have to have that, because if you're number 9 in that stack, you're not going to have success speaking at events. Like you need to be top 2 or 3 of interest in that event speaking, because it's not just one speaker at these events. That's the first thing. From a reseller perspective, what's worked for us that's completely changed the way we approach the business is I would argue the reseller is actually our customer. It's not our paying customer, but we treat our resellers as our customer because they're making money from us. So we are their product, basically. So we now build our company. We actually build our product, and we're starting to do more of this around what does the reseller want first? What will make their job easier to sell this product? And then think about the end customer. So really we have a B2B2C model. And so we focus on the B2B as our first customer, and then the B2B2C, even though that it's really B2B2B because it's like the retailer's their customer, but we kind of look at it as B2B2C because like there's 100,000 retailers we're going after, and there's not as many resellers. So it's like, okay, how can we get the reseller as our customer, build a product in a way that's easy for them to sell, easy for them to deploy, and then think about the end customer. So it's a combination of building the product as them as our customer. And I would say the other thing, like in terms of recruiting, is if building it for them as our customer, but then treating them as if they're an internal hire. So like treating them as, okay, we're going to build this as like you're our customer, as if because it's basically building your business, like you're making the money off of it. That's part A. Then part B is recruiting you and treating the recruiting process like we were hiring somebody internally or trying to get somebody. I treat it as if I'm trying to steal an employee from a competitor. I've never done that before, just to put that out there. But just like, how can I sell you the vision of our company compared to the rest of the market? Why, like, you could sell any product out there. Here's why you should sell our product. So it's selling them on the vision and then obviously back funneling it with the things we've done to make them quote unquote our customer.
So just ethically speaking, you would never, ever in a million years steal an employee, but you would absolutely poach a reseller. Is that is that the way it works?
Yes. Yep.
I love that. How do you actually find the resellers in the first place? Like the reason I'm asking is I had Stuart Townsend on an episode of this a little while back, and he built the channel partner program at Zendesk, basically from the beginning. And he was saying that you could literally go to Microsoft's website and find a list of all their resellers. Like you can go to a competitor, find their reseller page, and there will be a list of resellers there. And he would go through and poach them that way. Like, is that, like, do you do that? Do you have a different approach for finding resellers? Like, how do you find them in the first place?
It's a great question. In our market, there's not like a public directory in that way where you can just go to a website and like, oh, great, here are all these folks. There are certain, usually it's point of sale based. So the reseller is almost always first a either payment processing reseller or a point of sale reseller. So by doing it that way, we usually partner with the point of sales first and sort of get access that way. But then just, word of mouth and referrals, getting people, one reseller. Every reseller knows other resellers. They don't work in a silo. So I would say that's our number one way is just quote unquote word of mouth and then fueling that word of mouth via the resellers. But we also get introductions via the point of sale systems and kind of going that way. And then once again, using in-person events. So resellers have in-person events that we've gone to and met them there and, basically wine and dine them and taking it from that approach.
Okay. So there's still a lot of hand-to-hand combat involved in your strategy here. Like it's not hands-off. It's a lot of you as a founder going and talking to events or going and meeting resellers or having conversations with people on the phone or face-to-face. Do you have other people involved in reaching out to resellers or doing public speaking or doing sales or anything like that? Or are you personally as a founder the real engine room at the moment?
I definitely still do a lot on this side of things for sure. It's not just me. From a speaking perspective, it's 100% just me. We don't have anybody on the team that would be able to, I think eventually we would like to bring on more talent there. But it's a little bit more of a talent business. So we have to approach it a little bit differently, I think, on that side of things. So that we're not going to be pulling away at any time, just definitely not in the next 12 months. From the other side of things, it's basically just backfilling. Like I'll lead it and then we'll backfill it with somebody else. Like right now I have a hire that specifically does like bringing on new resellers and they do some outside sales as well. So their job is specifically to, basically build our fleet. And then we're starting to bring on some of our resellers to bring on more resellers. So like our full-time and part-time hiring pipeline is like have people that love working with us and then bring them actually into our internal team and give them a role that's kind of expanding that network specifically.
That makes a lot of sense. I love this. This is B2B2B. We have resellers reselling to other resellers.
And on this note is that like I think you've been kind of like asking a lot about just like what's the next channel or what's like what like or like da, 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 da. I think like we found something that works. And I know this can take us to $10 million a year. And after I've thought about that, I don't think about anything else anymore. Because I used to think about that a lot. I used to be like, all right, well, what channels are we going to need at 2 million and 5 million and 10? And now I'm just like, can this specific channel get us to 1? Yes. Can it get us to 2? Yes. Can it get us to 5? Yeah. Can it get us to 10? Most likely, but we'll figure out somewhere between 5 and 10. We'll probably add a second channel there. But like, okay, great. If that's the math, I don't need to spend any time thinking about it besides making this the best, most effective channel of all time.
I think there's a lot of power in that. One of the biggest patterns that I see. So if I do a bit of business coaching from time to time, and the number one thing that pops up is people say, "Oh, we've got this channel over here, and it's kind of working, but we want to do ads, or we want to do affiliates, or we want to do SEO, or we want to do something else." And I tear my hair out saying, "Look, you've got something that's kind of working. 10x that. Just double down on that. Just do that one thing and do it a little bit better. Do it a little bit faster. Scale it up, and that will grow. Worry about another channel when you're starting to max that one out, but you haven't even scratched the surface of it yet." So I really like the fact that you're saying, okay, we found a channel that it can get us, to $5 or $10 million. We'll worry about finding a second channel when we start to max it out, but there's so much room to grow with what we're currently doing. I love that.
And I made that mistake, right? I made that mistake for literally like 4 years. The mistake you just said, that was me. This is how we got our first customers, by the way. Okay, outside of my hustle at the beginning of just going and knocking on doors, but even me, I was our first reseller, basically. Like, that's how I got businesses, essentially. I was knocking on doors and I was going, like, installing it in person, doing it with them specifically. And then we got our like next 10 customers via third-party affiliates, channel partners, referrals. At the time, it wasn't resellers, but even at that time, I was that person. I was like, well, can we really count on them to bring us more deals? I wasn't thinking like, how do we scale this channel specifically? I was just kind of like, well, let's try cold outbound. Maybe I'll try this. Let's try events. Let's try da-da-da-da. I was constantly looking for something different. And like, for whatever reason, ignoring this channel that was working.
Did you have any fears or reservations about resellers or about affiliates? Is it, like, what was the reason why you didn't want to just double down on that initially?
Listen, I think the fears were justified because I shouldn't say we just like ignored it. We weren't like, oh, this is cute. Like, let's just not do anything with this. We did make efforts on it. I mean, in the early days, I think we solved some of these problems. We would bring on 7 affiliates and 6 would do nothing. They would never bring us a single deal, and 1 would bring 20. But then even when that 1 did 20, so that's kind of how the math started. It was like we'd bring on 7, 6 would bring us basically none. It would just be a big flop. They'd be excited. They would bring us nothing. 1 would bring like 10 or 20. But then once they hit the limit of their network, they brought 0. So it wasn't like they were out there like constantly bringing new referrals. It was like, okay, great. I'm going to introduce you to the 10 people I know on the top of my head that'd be great for this. We would close them, and then it would really like go from 10 in a month to 2 to 1 to 0. And so I think at the time my reservations were like, well, we can't scale this because everyone only like the math wasn't mathing. It was like, oh, it was like, well, if we do all this work to get affiliates, we got to get 7 to sign on just to get on, 20 deals divided by 7. There's 2 a piece, and then that's gonna fizzle after 2 months. We got to refill the bucket. And so, yeah, I didn't. That was my reservations, and that was true. And that, by the way, is still true today from an affiliate perspective. What I didn't do is I didn't think, okay, is this a solvable problem in a different way? And that's where I would have found the reseller network, because the difference between a affiliate who's just like giving us an intro to get a kickback, I would call it like a channel partner specifically, and a reseller is the reseller's whole business is this. Like, they're going out doing new cold calls every day, and they need more products to sell in that stack. So they have this, they're not just like, oh, I know these 10 clients that'd be great for you. And they do have that, but they have this endless pipeline because they're constantly talking to new customers, and you're becoming a product for them to sell, actually.
So their entire business model is, how do I find more customers and how do I find more products to sell to those customers? So they're growing both sides of the marketplace.
Correct.
At the same time. Yeah, that makes
correct.
A lot of sense.
So it was more like I didn't think deep enough at the time on, could we take this like problem, go a little deeper, tweak it, and find what looks like that in a different way, and then double down on that.
It makes a lot of sense now. We say that like we think about this sort of as one channel, but really there's kind of channel A and channel B when it comes to partnerships or resellers. Resellers and affiliates are very different things, very different beasts. When did you have that light bulb moment? Like, how far into the business were you before you're like, hang on, wait a second, not ignore the affiliates, but affiliates and resellers are different. How do we go after the resellers?
I don't know if it was a light bulb moment. In fact, I know it wasn't a light bulb moment. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is it. Let's go. Let's do this. It was more like a slow light bulb moment where like, oh, because when we started to see it work, it was apparent it would continue to work. It was like, okay, we brought on 1, they're bringing 3 deals a month, every month consistently. And as they get more confident, it's going up. Then we layer a second one on, they're also bringing 3. Then we layer a third on, they're also bringing 3. So I just started to see the scalability. It's like, okay, great. Let's try to add 3 more. And we added 3 more. It's like, it's working. Oh my God, let's keep stacking it. Like, and then you started to see the scalability of it. Like, it was just kind of like blossoming. It's like, okay, great. Now we have something. Let's keep going.
Fantastic. Do you have a little known hack or a little tip that maybe first time founders wouldn't really think about too much?
My tip, and this is what I tell everybody, because I just look at like, what did I wish I had done, when I first started? And my tip to everybody is think deeply about what business you actually want to start. And I'm not saying I hate my business, because I love my business, but I'm not convinced that if I had thought about that question, I would be in the business I'm in today. Because once you get started, even though you can pivot, you can change, like I would say, but once you have any customers, like I think it's way more common to have some success than it just flops, you get no customers. I think when you have some success, the business you're in, the vertical you're in, and thinking more deeply about what's the life I actually want to have with this business is really important. We've basically found it impossible to like change the nature of our business, like change our customer or change what they like. Even customers that we've had for 5 years, when we add new products, they're like, this is our newest product. It has been impossible to change their initial first impression of us. Like they're still like, no, you're the same company you were 5 years ago. And we're like, no, we're not. What are you talking about? 80% of the product is different, but they're still in their head like, this is the company you are. It's like, it's really, really hard to change people's minds. And I just think most people, and myself included, are like, well, where can I grow a business? Where's their customer need? Like so many people focus on like the problem and can I solve that problem? And can the business be made on top of that problem? And if those three things equal an opportunity, I'm in. I should build this business. But that doesn't mean the business is going to be really unenjoyable for you. And I think stamina is like, I've just learned this, like stamina is, I would argue, like the most important thing, like really going long when it starts to work, like actually, mentally getting in this state of, if I do this for 20 years, here's what the outcome could be, or at least 10 years. I think there's not enough people think about that question of like, what is like work in reverse, I would say. Okay, what is what I actually want out of this business in terms of a lifestyle perspective or like outcomes, and then build a business that backs into that specifically.
I like that. I think, what's the quote? Most people overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in. Correct me if I'm saying. Am I understanding correctly? So if you were to ask yourself, hey, I'm going to start a business, would you be happy working in this space for the next 10 or 20 years? Is that a business that you really want to get involved in, rather than, I think this is a great idea, I'll do it for a year and then we'll see what happens?
It's the space, it's the who the customer is, it's the type of product you're building, it's the industry, it's the type of customer you have, it's the common distribution methods or the distribution methods that you're going to use to get to those things. We just spent 20 minutes talking about our distribution channel. I very literally mean like, we have to grow this business, so we have to go to the channel that works the best. I'm not saying that's the channel I want to do or I enjoy the most or I want to be, doing those things, but like we're just in line with like the channel chose us. It's like, this is the way we're going to grow this business. It's so clear that it's the case. So I look at it more like you're on a 10-year journey. You can squint and see the very end of the 10 years and it's a path. But what you don't realize is if you go 1 degree to the right, after 10 years, you end up in totally different places. So even just one slight shift at the very beginning of the business, the end outcome after 10 years of like where you're at, what type of business it is, who the customer it is, so on and so forth, basically just diverges over time. And I think it's hard to correct middle of the business back to that original path once you're 3 years in, 4 years in, at certain revenue milestones, you have team, you have payroll, to just like go back and, oh wait, no, I like that path over there better. I'd rather be on a path where I get inbound leads through my website and they all sign up on the website. Like our business will never be a business that half our customers go to the website and sign up and pay us. It's just not the customer type. Like they don't buy MailChimp that way, and MailChimp, I mean, our customer segment is a subset of the MailChimp customers and they don't buy MailChimp that way. So it's just like, it's a byproduct of our business nature, less of like, well, it's just not gonna be part of our business or not gonna be a meaningful part of our business, I would say.
I was talking to someone recently about the idea of founder channel fit, which is something you've touched on before. So you've got to, it's not just about having, the right product for the right market. People want to buy what you want to sell, or are willing and able to buy what you're selling. It's about, there are these ways that our customers like to discover and buy products. And I, as a founder, need to be able to deliver on one or more of those channels. Otherwise, I don't have founder channel fit. And I could have best product market fit in the world, but I personally, as a founder, can't get it to market. I can't get it in front of these customers. So when you're talking about you being, the best public speaker out of 10, okay, that's founder channel fit. When you're talking about these resellers and the fact that you can work with them, sign them up, get them excited and motivated, and because that's a relationship management thing too, and not everyone's built that way. But you found channels that work for your audience, but you found channels that work for you personally. And when you get those two things working together, it sounds like everything started to click into place. I want to change tack and just ask you a couple of other quick questions. Is there any advice that you would give to a first-time founder more generally? Like, is there something that you've learnt as a founder now that you would probably not have thought about when you just started the business?
I will never build another business after this business if I don't have 100 customers that will buy the product the day the product launches, the day the business starts. So to me, all I care about, like, I don't even care about the product anymore. I do, obviously, like, I am a product guy, believe it or not, but from a business starting perspective, when you're at zero, I don't care what the product is. All I care about is distribution. Where is the distribution happening, and where is their distribution leverage? So to me, I wouldn't start a business without an audience first, or a distribution channel that I uniquely know, like, I can get 100 signups before I even write a single line of code, where it's like, okay, and that distribution channel could, in theory, scale, I would say. So I think, like, the order that I went in is like, I have an idea, I'm going to build a product, I'm going to find people to buy that product, versus find the people that would buy that product, build a community or an audience around it, offer them, hey, if I were to build this product, go put $10 on, sign up right now for $10 or $50 or pre-sell that product. I'll deliver it in 3 months from now. Then have 100 customers to launch that product to, then expand from there. So I would literally go the opposite direction of the way I went, which is like, build the community first. We could have built the business we have now. And at the beginning, I would have said, there's no way I could have done this. We have to build the code first. Like, we have to build the product first. Like, no one's going to do this. We could have literally ran MailChimp for our customers and gotten 500 customers running MailChimp through a service agency through them without building a single line of code, and then switch them over to what we have now after we had done that, or like built a blog about how to use MailChimp, or, like, we could have done so many other things to build an audience first, or like, we could have just not done any of the hard stuff first, built the distribution channel, built the audience, and then built the product and the business around that.
I love that. And is that a realization that you came to independently? Did you have mentors along the way? Like, is there something that a mentor has taught you that has really stuck with you?
This specific thing, I think it's not for sure. This specific thing is not from a mentor. It's from me observing just and learning the business over time, and also just seeing other people in the space that have audiences launch their own business. It's like, oh my God, you had the audience, that you knew exactly what they wanted. And then day one, you just had 500 customers that all, like, you basically had $0 to $1 million in like a week, but not because you just had this great idea. I've seen people do it now from like an observation standpoint in my network. It's like, wow, this is such a better way of doing it. Like, you didn't do anything. You just talked to people and built their audience around talking to people, knew what they wanted, built something for that audience, and then deploy the product from there. So just kind of piecing together those two components. From mentorship, absolutely. Like, I would say that I wouldn't be where I am, and I'm continually trying to find mentors. A little bit of a loose word, a little bit too strict of a word. I'm continually trying to find people smarter than me that have done things 2 or 3 steps ahead of me to give me guidance or direction in what we're doing. I think the best mentor advice I've gotten is not, back to my original point at the beginning of this podcast, it's not like universal truths. Like, the best mentorship advice I've gotten is people that actually have gone a little bit deeper in our business and have been like, listen, most businesses are not built. Like, the thing I talked about doubling down on this one channel, that I got from my mentor network. Like, I have ADHD. That's probably my weakest part as a founder, is I always have new ideas, new product things, new innovations. And like, that's hurt us over the years. But like, just having people be like, no, this is working. Do not come back to me until this has driven another 500 customers. I don't want to hear another thing about that. Like, this is clearly what it is. So just being able to like clear the haze around it for me, I think has been like the best advice I've gotten. So it's not just like, listen, like, here's my framework for A, B, C, D. Like, that's helpful, but it's way more helpful when it's like, okay, we see what's happening in the business. Like, one of my mentors was just like, okay, great. Our goal, like, I kept coming to him with like, well, we could do this, and this will drive this much new business, it'll drive new customers. And he's basically just like, all right, what's your goal for the next 6 months? Like, here's the goal. All right, we're gonna put what that goal is. All right, how big does this business get if you hit that goal? Like, do you see the vision for what could be $100 million year business? I'm like, yep, here's the story. Here's what it would be. He's like, okay, great. That doesn't matter anymore. Now that we know like that can be the case, we're only going to focus on this goal, and that's the only goal we're going to talk about. Nothing else matters. New distribution channels, new product, new innovation doesn't matter. We're just going to A line it to this, or B line it to this outcome. And if it doesn't add directionally to this outcome, we're not even going to talk about it right now. It's not even part of the conversation. I think that's like been the most helpful for our business and for me as a founder.
Absolutely. I think you'd be surprised. Just about all the founders that I talk to, it's like, yep, got shiny object syndrome. I've got a business over here that's working, but there's this other thing over here. Or I've got this idea over here, or maybe we need to roll out this new feature. And it sometimes takes someone external to say, no, 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 don't do that. That's fine. Leave that over here. Focus on this. Focus on the thing that's working. I think that's something we all need to hear from time to time. Nick, are there any books or tools or resources that you would recommend to other SaaS founders? Maybe if they're a few steps behind where you are right now.
Yeah, so this is going to sound like some people might have a big eye roll with this next statement, but the Hormozy books, $100 million offers and $100 million leads, I think should be like a must read for everybody because they're not specific to SaaS. I think most of the SaaS books are great. I've read tons of SaaS books. I've read like probably everything you possibly could read. They're great, but I think they're actually harder to put into execution. Like his books are so equally I think these are equally distributed, and it's a lot more just like how you're pricing it, how you're pitching your value to the world, and just from like a root fundamentals basis, they're so impactful. I think those books specifically just like change the way I thought about just like how we're structuring the business, and it could put them into effect like one after a time. Like I go back to those books continuously, like every couple months to just like check things off the list. Like, okay, did we do this? Did we do this? Did we do this? I think he's just done a really, really good job with it.
Absolutely. And Nick, if someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out?
I would say the best way to reach out to me is to DM me on LinkedIn. Nick McHenry. I think it's just LinkedIn.com/Nick McHenry, or search me Nick McHenry. That's for sure the best channel. I suck at email. Do not email me. But LinkedIn DMs would be the best way for someone to get a hold of me.
Cool. I'll put a link in the description below. But yeah, cool. That sounds awesome. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show, buddy. This was awesome. This was great.
Yeah, awesome. I super enjoyed it.